Here.
Councilmember Pesco.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Gauss.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
We have a spot on our agenda now, and we have one at the end of the meeting for public comments. So if anyone would like to address the council, they may do so now or at the end of the meeting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Will you just please state your name?
My name is Carl Thornton from Coldwater, Michigan. I own the 5 Star Pizzas. I'm the guy that started Broadway Grill since I sold out in December to Scott. I love Monroe Street, and I've been looking at Lefties for quite some time. Kind of got a little scared today, but I think that was going to keep coming. Something was on the internet that I kind of alluded that it already been sold. So. But I have a proposal for it. I love Monroe Street. I painted the front 2 buildings different colors. I think could be the heart of your town. I would like to see Lefties built up. I don't want to waste everybody's time here. I printed this out. Tim Hart has this. I'm not sure if you got this to anybody yet. If not, I can pass it out. I can give it. So you'll see my ideas in there. My idea would be to cash you out, and I have the money to put 75, whatever, into the building. No bank loan needed. I own 5 pizzerias. I've done 15 of them and 50 houses, so I kind of know that market. I know you might be looking for a restaurant bar, and that would be a good move, actually. I think Coldwater could use a couple more restaurants and a couple more bars. I think Monroe Street might want some more variety. I think my wife, I don't know if you ever had Grandma Nettie's Cheesecake at Broadway Grill, but that's my wife, and she'd like to build that business out and sell it to the restaurants and the pizzerias currently. I think that might be neat. I think a coffee shop might be neat, candy store, variety thereof. My plan would be to go in there, fix the 2 apartments up, get some cash flow, and then be flexible. I think I can fix those up in 2 or 3 months, barring any, I don't know what all the building code differentials would be. And then I think I could fix the downstairs up at the same time, simultaneously. So I think within 6 months you could have a viable business downtown. And I'd strip the walls to brick like we did at Broadway Grill. Put a new floor in, new ceiling. I think it could look sharp. A really nice building. I just think Monroe Street could be the heart of the town, and I think Tim's doing a great job. And, you see my proposal there. Like I said, I could cash you out and go from there. Just keep me in mind. My cell phone's on there. You can call me 24/7. Sunday at 10 p.m. I don't care. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments at this time? Yes.
I'm Dan Corwin, and I would like to see the public offered an opportunity to buy the Lefties. This was never offered to the public. In fact, the public was given the indication it wasn't on the market. We were told that it would be remodeled into a restaurant and bar and then sold. And there are people who are waiting to see what that is to buy it after that. So I don't feel that this has been a very, very fair offer to tell everybody to go away and then announce that it's been sold. I feel it's very much like Keith Baker telling me I can't lease a storefront downtown and it's still open, but he supposedly was working on something. Now this is a tax sale, and now apparently we're going to have to pay our contractor a $1,500 fee for coming up with some way to buy it. This whole thing does not look good. Thank you.
Any other public comments at this time?
I forgot
Yes,
one.
sir. Yeah, yes.
I brought a cheesecake.
Sir, I'm sorry, Carl. You call me Mike.
Yeah, I brought a cheesecake. There's 12 slices. You have to fight over it.
All right. Any other public comments at this time? Oh, John wants to cheesecake. Seeing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. These are items that we consider to be routine. We'll take them in one motion unless someone up here or someone in the audience wants to remove for further discussion or clarification. Tonight on our consent agenda are our minutes of September 23rd, DEA minutes of August 28th, Library Advisory minutes of September 9th, Planning Commission minutes of September 3rd, Historic District minutes of August 14th, our financial report for August, and a memo for me regarding board appointments. Would anyone in the audience like anything removed for clarification? Anybody up here? We would love a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved. Support.
We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, bills and accounts. As always, everything is listed by item on the web for us and for anyone in the public to look at. Tonight, they're asking us to approve $210,391. I see Tom's in the audience, so is Jeffrey. Council have any questions? Spend some money, then what's your action?
Your Honor, I move to pay our bills. Support.
We have motion and support to pay our bills. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, city manager report. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Council. Just go through a number of things to remind you and the public of. We have, first of all, November election is scheduled for Tuesday, November 5th, just a couple weeks away. Having filled out my own absentee ballot, there are a couple things on the ballot this year: the mayoral election, various council member elections, and the Coldwater Community School Sinking Fund request. If there are any questions, by all means, give our City Clerk, Susan Heath, a call. On projects, Mills parking lot, work is underway, about halfway done as of today on the water main behind the existing buildings. A concrete curb drove through today, and that was installed for what would be the east side of North Hanchett Street. There's still some patching, there's still some work to be done in Hanchett before that gets converted to one-way for additional parking during the course of the remainder of construction. And I know they're still hoping to have the actual apartment building started here shortly as well. Allen Avenue reconstruction project, that work is underway. The existing asphalt was pulverized, work on culverts, catch basins, and driver coaches is underway. We're working with the 2 companies down there. There's some concerns related to layout, so we're going to meet tomorrow morning with the contractor and the engineer and representatives from the companies to look at kind of a status report as to what the road is looking like right now and what, if any, changes need to be made before final work is completed. You see there a picture of our Mishta modular house that was installed last week, and the work will begin this week on the garage, and we hope to have in the next month or so the home completed or available for sale. There again, that was through a grant program, and that program will allow an affordable or a workforce housing purchaser to buy that house, and so that house will be made available by the end of November is the intent. Just a few fall reminders. This went out last week as well, but final brush pickup has been completed. It was completed last week. There may be some miscellaneous piles that will get picked up as time permits, but we ask that the residents not put any piles out further. They can be taken to our municipal services building or held for next spring, but we ask that no more be put out for this fall and winter. Yard waste bags will continue to be picked up on a weekly basis as weather permits until snow flies and we complete leaf pickup, so we'll continue to do that. Relative to leaves, we ask that no one put out the leaves yet either. We've seen a couple piles show up. Most of the trees haven't lost their leaves yet, so when that begins to happen more fully and when we can put together a schedule, we'll make the announcement to get the word out and start putting the leaves out. But at this point, we're not really geared up yet to start picking up leaves. And then lastly, we just ask when there are good weather days that it's restricted from burning yard waste in the city limits. And then lastly, the Halloween parade is just over a week away, Saturday, October 26th. That kicks off at 7:30, and I believe there's a trunk or treat or a trick or treat type of event that's being planned for just prior to that as well. So looking at trying to incorporate some of the businesses downtown and some of the other volunteer and service clubs to provide trick or treating in lead up to that event. So more to come on that. And that's all I have for this evening.
Question?
Keith, can you explain the construction of the Four Corners?
Where the status?
Just can you explain what's going on down there so people know what's going on?
Okay, sure. So we did seek bids earlier this, it was late summer. And with that, we only received one bid and it was very high. And so,
I
or
mean,
the corner, oh,
I mean, actual construction on the road.
okay. Oh, okay, now I understand. So that's a patch. The city is working on a patch at the intersection of US 12 and Division/Marshall. And for those, I'm sure you've driven through it, there was a large hump. The concrete underneath is heaved over time and creating a large hump, and so we're trying to repair that.
Jim?
On the Mishna house, that has a basement in it,
Yes.
and we know approximately the price of what that'll cost.
200 plus or minus some change.
Looks good.
And that's within what the grant perimeters provide, and it is based on our median income for the county and what, at least from a formula standpoint, what a household with that median income could affordably pay in a mortgage payment, expecting not to exceed 30% of their gross income.
Thanks.
Okay, any questions for Keith? If not, Jim?
I got a couple for you, Keith.
Yep.
On that Mishna house, this is a question a lot to the north,
Okay.
between the existing homes. Is that owned by that homeowner?
Yes, that's owned by the neighbor to the north.
That's what I thought, and
Yep.
he purchased that. I just noticed that's relatively high compared to the grade of that house. Is that, are we working with them on that?
Yep, we struck a deal to do grading there, and so Parrish will be back in there,
Okay.
both for our purposes and for his purposes to allow in the future, if they were to put a garage or do something there, that it'll bring it down to a lower level towards to the road. But yes, for our drainage and grading purposes, yep, we struck a deal there.
I'm glad to hear that. Also, in the neighborhood on Michael Drive, the home that's been in escrow and changed over, pointed out, and I went over and looked at it, the existing wall in the house that was going to attach to the garage is now sided over. Like they decided to not build a garage. Is it true that don't the homes in this neighborhood area, aren't they required to have a garage, attached garage?
Unless it were part of a deed restriction or a covenant, there's no city law ordinance that requires a
Is there
garage.
a deed requirement for that neighborhood?
That I'm not aware of.
Can you check on that?
That would be a civil matter though, Jim, not up to the city. That's not a government thing. That the homeowners association would have to bring action, I believe. Correct, Megan? You know, it's not a city business.
When I drove through about a week, it was Friday, and I don't think, was it cited over the weekend?
It was just pointed out to me, and I had to go back and look last night, because the last time I was back there, it wasn't. And it was told to me by one of the other homeowners that when they had their house built right there, under the old Deerfield subdivision, or whatever it was, that all the homes were required to have a garage.
So that would have been a deed restriction as part of that
It's a
development.
good association.
But that wouldn't be on this one now?
Well, if you want to chime in, or
I have read a number of deeds in that area, and some of them expressly include roof pitch, garage, full basement, those kinds of requirements. And some of them, as far as I can see, do not. It depends on from whom the property was conveyed. I think Mr. Boyer was involved, there were some other people back in the past. It kind of also depended a little bit on when they did the conveyance. So as to that particular home, I can't answer the question, but I can say that some of them seem to, and some of them seem not to, of the deeds. I don't know about the Deerfield Meadows subdivision, whether there were requirements in an actual subdivision. And I don't know if that house was part of, that lot was part of the material.
It's in the middle of it, but
Okay, fine.
So
not that long.
we have copies of the subdivision, and we should have copies of any master deed, and we can look up as to whatever was being recorded, you would have record on, as far as whether or not there's a deed restriction.
But Megan, we don't enforce those if someone violates those.
We're not, that's not the government's job to enforce that, that's the homeowner's job, since they're the beneficiaries of those consistent, that everybody have those consistent qualifications or qualities of the housing. Deerfield Meadows, was that ever a subdivision? I don't think it ever was a subdivision. I think it was laid out as if it was going to be a subdivision, but I don't think it was registered at the state as a subdivision. So I can look into it and get back to it, but that's some of the issues.
I understand what you're saying, but I want to go back and tell the people in the neighborhood that brought it up that sue them. I'd like to find out if that's the case or not. As a matter of fact, because when we talked about this mission house, that was one of the concerns that I brought up, that we, if you recall, we talked about roof pitch and garages and that type of stuff back there, but I don't recall that it was in place, but please verify so we and then one other thing, just a question on the leaf pickup, brush pickup. Is there any chance we could extend it just because we haven't lost the leaves yet, and people that prune their trees and everything usually don't do that until after the leaves fall, just because of the extended summer?
We can always extend it, but your direction, we just try to, we advertise it as being ended in the first pickup of October, first week of October, but if that were your direction, we can always do that. It just becomes a time management on this time of year for trying to get other things accomplished as well.
Age not here.
No, you don't conference, I believe.
So,
I
don't see anybody opposed to it.
We're gonna have time to do it, I guess.
And if you wanted to, we make it a priority, so it's not.
Up to council.
I can't imagine you two everybody do it, there's a lot of people that prune trees and they lose.
Are you thinking like by the end of the month or a certain date, or give them one more window, or? Well, on the leaves, we usually go into
December.
Yeah, depending on, if it hasn't snowed, so, the leaf thing, we haven't even started that. But all I'm saying, all I previously had said was, we were cutting off the brush pickup, the bulk brush pickup. But if you want to continue with that, we can continue with that.
I'd say if we're going to continue, we give at least a couple weeks for residents to get trees pruned.
Why not do November, like the first week in November, because we've done the first week, and that first Monday of the first week of the month, so.
Hopefully it's prior to the snowfall.
Tough to call.
Right.
I want to follow up on Jim's question though about Megan, about the deed to the lots that we bought on Micro Drive. We will put in though deed restrictions on those.
And that's what we had discussed, was that when we gave out any lots or
I know it wasn't the
options, you
same,
talked
just
about.
the reason I brought that up was based on the understanding that that's what was back in that neighborhood. We didn't want to see single houses or small homes, we talked about the size, that's where I came from originally.
So we are protecting the lots that we bought to ensure those.
We haven't done anything with
Well,
it,
we
we haven't
have-
sold them, we haven't done anything with them.
Well, we sold water.
Well, we're going to try to, yeah.
Okay, just so, good question.
So, not hearing any opposition, we'll just extend it into the next month.
Thank you.
That will be excited.
Dave will hear it on the radio tomorrow morning.
Anything else for Keith? If not, a motion to accept the city manager report, please.
Motion to accept?
Support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Now we have a public hearing regarding the establishment of a commercial rehab district corridor between Division and Clay. Action to be considered adoption of resolution 1971. We will open the public hearing and hear from our own Audrey Tappenden.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I put together a presentation again. I modified it a little bit to shorten it since we've been through this material once. but wanted to bring it back in front of you just as a refresher. I know Councilmember Petsko was absent, and then also for any audience members who are interested and came to hear more about this. I say it didn't draw nearly as large of a crowd as the Neighborhood Improvement Authority, but it's okay. So, Commercial Rehab District is something that is allowed under Public Act 210 of 2005. The purpose is just to encourage rehabilitation of commercial property.
Audrey.
Oh, I see. It's a.
So now switch over to the gym.
I plug it in.
Shonda, you want to go ahead and put it back up? There you
Okay.
Oh, she doesn't have a plug in, so just go ahead with
I
press
just
it.
need to. Okay, so
Just
the
give an
purpose-
overview on
Yeah, it's to encourage rehabilitation of commercial property by abating the property taxes that are generated from that new investment. And abatement terms last up to 10 years, basically as recommended or decided by council. So the specific impacts of this district, there are 5 criteria, and it's the same criteria that are used when reviewing applications that come in for projects. It's to increase commercial activity, increase employment, increase residents in the community, to retain employment, and then also to revitalize urban areas in general. And then just a brief summary of to what this applies, essentially. So any projects can seek an abatement if they are commercial property that is 15 years or older. For example, office space, engineering, warehousing, parts distribution, warehouse, things of that nature. It also applies to vacant property, which had commercial property on site within the past 15 years. So vacant land from which a previous structure would have been demolished. It also includes industrial buildings or property that can become commercial property. So in this situation, the use is what's important, not so much as the zoning district. It's what that property can be used for, its potential. And then multifamily residential and qualified food establishment, which is kind of like a separate little piece that's less likely to come into play. And so it's improvements that restore or modify the property to an economically efficient condition is what's entailed in rehab. And those improvements have to amount to at least 10% of the cash value of the property to be eligible and to see some return on going through the application process. Taxes. So there were some questions last time about how taxes are calculated, what applies, and what's exempt, and that sort of thing. So there are essentially 3 different pieces of taxes for a facility that receives this exemption. So basically their land is taxed at the full rate. There's no exemption or abatement on the land, and there's no exemption or abatement on any structures that are not part of the rehab project that takes place. So all of that continues as usual. The second piece is the commercial property that is part of that rehab. The taxable value freezes at its pre-rehabilitation value, and then that value is what is taxed at any given year's millage rate. So that value will stay the same, but the millage rate is subject to change just based on what millages are imposed. And then the third piece of this is the value of the improvements are taxed at the millage rate for local and state education, which just means the education taxes are not part of the exemption. Those continue. And then in response to the question that we had last time about special assessments are exempt for the facilities. And then we're going to the proposed boundary up, which is basically a corridor which connects two groupings of parcels that are commercial zoning, that are traditionally used for commercial purposes. And it also basically creates a corridor heading south, and it scoops up other properties that, even if it's zoned industrial, are currently used for commercial purposes or could be used for commercial purposes in the future. And it's basically the southern corridor that leads into the city, into the downtown, where we've kind of seen some rehab projects taking place already. and where there's potential for greater rehab projects like 32 Railroad Street, which we know that business is moving and things like that.
Let's put in place a process by which we can grant tax abatements for new investment in that corridor.
Succinctly, yes. Essentially, you set up the district, and then it's up to any project or applicant to decide if this is something they want to pursue, and then there's a separate application and public hearing on their application in their request for an abatement.
So we can still individually vote on the abatement for each project.
Correct. Yep, based on those 5 criteria, does it create, retain jobs, housing, economic vitality, and that sort of thing.
Yep, ask questions of Audrey or staff, and then we'll open up for public comment. So does council have any questions for Audrey? We went over this a couple weeks ago. The bottom line is Garfield, and the north is just north of, what is that, Race Street, or?
Right, Race, north of Race and almost to Perkins.
The old Dairy Queen, basically, south.
Yeah.
Questions for Audrey? Thank you, Audrey. We'll take any public comments on this thing. You may speak now.
I just have one question. I talked to a business today that I thought would be very much for this, and reminded them that they'd be at the meeting tonight, and they didn't seem to support it. From the letter they got, which I had not read, but the letter they got, they read that to be that they would lose their grandfather status on a lot of their facilities, and they would be required to bring their current existing facilities up to code. I told them I wasn't aware of that, but they couldn't be here tonight, so I wanted to ask that question and see if we can clear that up, because as far as I can tell, nothing out of in this but good, but if they have to bring their buildings up to code just because they're in the zone, that would make a big difference. So somebody to answer that, I appreciate it.
So no, this wouldn't affect the underlying zoning of the property as far as what it could be used for, nor would it address or impact what the current condition of the building is. Only if they were to actually do a project or move forward with any kind of investment in the building would they then be subject to whatever the building code says for what they're planning to do.
When they choose to improve.
Right, yeah.
Okay, that's the way I understood it. But they were afraid that the city would come in and say, you've got so much time to pave your parking lot, and then all of a sudden it turns into the thing that we had on the Board of Utilities where they've got all this drainage issues, and they didn't want to get into that. Otherwise, I think it's a good deal even for them because they were looking to expand, but they had that question, and I thought it was a legitimate question. If there's any downsides, we need to know. Appreciate it if you be upfront with it.
Any public comments this time regarding this issue? Not, we'll close the public hearing and bring discussion up to council. If anyone has any questions, now's the time. Staff are here. If not, they look for a motion to adopt or not adopt Resolution 1971.
Motion to adopt resolution 1971.
Support motion, we have support. Final questions? Not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Audrey. Number 11, a memo from Jeffrey Budd regarding solar net billing. Again, this was brought up a couple weeks ago, and our action tonight is to consider adoption of Ordinance 828. Jeff, you want to quickly summarize this?
Yes, thank you, Council, Mayor. This ordinance basically is our first step at trying to allow for solar installations. Basically, we are complying and using Traverse City Light Power, kind of going on what they're looking at. We've been looking at this for, gosh, over almost a year, trying to decide what the best method is. So we're working with, and I've drawn a blank, I think it's 244 of the Public Act, which regulates what you can and can't generate from a solar field. Working with that regulation, again, don't quote me on the number, but basically we came up with a policy looked at Traverse cities like theirs and are looking forward to having it. Again, we don't think it's going to be widely used, but we do want to allow and set the parameters for if somebody wants to connect rooftop solar or even freestanding solar, how can they do that onto our system and what would the cost be? We are looking at a net billing, which means that they will have to have an extra meter on the house so that we know exactly what is being generated as well as what is being consumed. It's a little bit different than net metering. Net metering just says, there's one meter that says, hey, the net is this. Well, there's some reasons why we want to make sure that they're not generating way more than what they're supposed to, because in accordance with the state law. The other thing is that we need to, would also want to make sure at the end there's a true-up period. So if they're generating more by the end of the year than they're allowed, we basically, those kilowatt hours would be free to us. But again, that's why they're going to be sized, so they probably will not be able to generate more than what their usage is on that. So that's in a quick nutshell. Does that answer any additional questions you may have?
Jeff, in the numbers that we saw, so for one of the examples, is it possible that they could generate enough power to where they would get a credit on their BPU bill?
That's why they're actually limited to 80%, so they're not supposed to be a generator, and that's what the public act. And again, I'm drawing a total blank on the number.
That's fine.
But what it says is they don't want everybody to start being a generator on the system, because then when all of a sudden it happens and all of a sudden they can't generate, then it's a big draw on our system and then we're not able to provide that power. That's why it's nice for us to have a net billing versus net metering, because now we know exactly what is being generated and what's being used. So hopefully by the end of the year, we're going to use the January to December calendar year. So they're at the end of the year will be a true-up basis. So they can build up their credit all the way to the end of the year. So at the end of the year, there's a small credit. It's just given.
Yep. Okay, so there's still a significant savings of the 8% cap.
Potentially, yeah, it just depends. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like everybody should go put rooftop solar on. I mean, that's a personal decision, because ultimately, you're still spending a lot of money. Now, there is a tax credit, which is, right now it's 30%, so there is some good benefit to that. But again, most people will not say, hey, we'll have the roof space, or even they just start putting solar fields up in their yard to generate enough to really make it worth it, because it's still going to be an additional cost. It's not going to be, boy, I'm going to save all this money, and my electricity is going to be free.
Okay.
Jeff, this is just the utility side on electricity. I would point out that city, through its planning council, has to yet decide how big these need to be. Do they need to be fenced? Are they on the roof? Are they on the ground? All those things have to be done yet on the city level through ordinances.
That's correct.
Planning council, is that correct?
Yes, that is in front of the planning council.
This just talks about the electricity that's generated, not the rest of it.
Correct.
Jeff, do we have anybody that's utilizing this as of right now?
No, because this policy was not in place. The first one who's technically looking at it, which wouldn't really come under the planning commission, is the ISD. That's why we wanted to make sure we had something in place for them to hook up to us. That's why we kind of went a little bit ahead of the planning commission, because you'd obviously like to have those done in concert, but we do want to make sure the ISD is able to take advantage of. And they're looking at doing solar for the hog barn. So.
And planning commission did address, or started addressing it last meeting, so that we will be bringing something to you for regulations for mainly the ground mounted ones. So it's in process. Question for Jeff? And he's looking for a motion, he would like a motion to adopt ordinance 828.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 828.
Support?
We have a motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jeff. Number 12 is a letter from Keith Baker regarding lease and option to purchase 10 South Monroe. Our action would be consider introduction of commercial lease agreement and option to purchase. Keith will describe this in more detail, but as address Carl's concerns, this is starts the process, and this will not be approved or would not be approved for 30 days, during which time certainly other operators could bring proposals to us. We now have one from Carl, and we have this one here. So it's going to be up to council which operator and operation we would choose to go with, but this starts the process, does not finalize the process. We think we're very excited about this. We think it's a win-win for the city and Monroe Street, but it's part of the process. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. So before you, the lease agreement addresses the initial use of the building. It would be for a 24-month period at $275 per month, and would give the purchaser or the tenant an opportunity to do the work, much like Mr. Thornton had suggested would be needed to be done to clean out the building, to renovate the apartments, and proceed with the commercial work. The idea behind establishing a period in which it gives the proposed tenant an opportunity to get the building established, and then if and when enough investment had occurred, in this case it would be $75,000, and the business would be in place for at least 6 months, then that would trigger the opportunity to purchase the building. And purchasing the building would be in the amount of the $23,500, which we've calculated through the course of what we've acquired the building for from the tax foreclosure process, the taxes, the current year's taxes, which had to be paid, and other closing costs that we've incurred in acquiring the property. So as the letter addresses, as a property tax foreclosed parcel through the state of Michigan, we as a municipality can't profit from that or just flip it, for example, as to whatever the highest bid would be for the building, because we would just have to then pass on that profit to the state of Michigan. So I would suggest, whether it's this proposal or any subsequent proposals in the next 30 days, that way they would have similar terms as far as the purchase price and investment, and the necessity to have established a building prior to purchase, or a business prior to purchase. This would establish that 30-day window where other proposals could be received. You're by no means obligated to accept this proposal or any subsequent proposal. This is just that one person putting forth an offer to first rent and then potentially buy this piece of property. I think the intent on council's behalf of acquiring the building was for an economic development purpose, to control its future use, to make sure whatever went in there benefited the downtown, and having, with all of our economic development activities, trying to identify businesses and uses that we're trying to recruit and have open downtown. So with that, this would put that lease agreement and purchase agreement on the table for 30 days. In preparing this, or in preparing for the meeting, I suppose we could have also gone about the process of just establishing a request for proposals and advertising it, and then accept them all at once. This in and of itself is similar to that, and then it starts the clock ticking. You have one offer, now others can be received.
Questions for Keith?
What process we didn't advertise it, we purchased it, I know we were waiting to hear back from the state to finalize it. When did we take control of it actually? When did the state sign off?
It was without the exact date in front of me, but it was September. So we haven't had possession of it for very long.
And we didn't really advertise it at all?
Currently, no. I mean, other than through what the media coverage was that was available to, that we were acquiring the property.
It wasn't a secret what we did, or
no,
did it? But
we haven't done a formal RFP process, correct?
I'm wondering out loud, it's like, how do you not accept an offer to wait to see if there's other, how long of a process, slow people up?
That's a good question. Obviously, as you know, we're concerned about the operation more so than getting our money out of the building. We're concerned about the operator. So I guess, like Keith said, this is a different way of doing it. It's another option. And we have now obviously two reputable and established operators that make proposal. And we have to decide in the next 30 days what vision we have for that building. And we do have 30 days to accept and look at offers and not. But either Carl or the Broadway offer are certainly legitimate, and we're very pleased to have them.
Could we possibly amend this agreement so that it's not named for Scott, so that it would be the operator awarded, so that we don't have to, a month from now, start this back over again, however it would be decided? Or does it have to be, does the individual have to be named? I don't know if it's agreement or what.
I think that the purpose of putting it on the table is to ensure that, well, we always have the problem, we have this problem with the Standard Oil building, that if you get another bidder comes in and says, well, I'll invest 150, not 75, or whatever, whatever the feature would be that you might want to take advantage of a subsequent offer. This can go on for a while, and yes, that's a problem. In the past, we've handled that when we had multiple competing offers by having a live auction and having people all come together and give me your best highest. We'll put that on the table for 30 days. But you are bound now to complete. Now, what is the punishment if you don't? But it's an effort to firm up among competing offers and a way to get to the end of the 30 days. There's no reason why at 30 days you have to move on this offer. The one that's on the screen.
Well, we have to start a new one over for 30 days.
No, unless you had a competing one and you wanted to put both of them down and make a choice. And if you, I suppose, I haven't had an opportunity to read what the new offer was. I have never seen it, so I'm not in a position to say whether it is comparable to what we put together for Scott to try to ensure that there was something, a viable business in there, substantial investment in fixtures, things that are going to be staying in place in the building in downtown Coldwater, that make it a benefit to the city to accept that offer. Perhaps there are similar or perhaps there are better things in the second offer. I have no idea. I haven't read it. But in terms of timing, there's no reason why 30 days from now we have to either move forward with Scott's or not in terms of our process. Scott may have his own issues with making a commitment to this and wanting to get started, or what would be the impact on him of delaying. Maybe he would have an opportunity in some other, I don't know. But that would be a thing to weigh in there too. But as far as tonight, all we're doing is starting with this. If what you'd like us to do is to compare the second offer and put together paperwork and then bring that forward at the next meeting, wait an additional 30 days. I don't know if there'll be others who come out of the woodwork as a result of the reporting on tonight's meeting. I don't know. But I think our whole point is to get a live business on Monroe Street. That's our whole point.
So,
and to be fair to maybe existing business that want to make an offer, and I think the 30 days gives that opportunity, I guess, in my opinion. So I think we're trying to be fair, but again, it's not the money, it's not the bid, the highest bid, it's a good operator and a good viable restaurant. I think is what a lot of us are looking for.
My answer to that question would be that you would have to include the proposal's name because you're acting on that in 30 days. So whether it's this operator or some other operator, for that particular contract or lease to be acted upon in 30 days, you got to set this one on the table for 30 days. So
even another one you're going to have to. Other questions, comments?
Does that price include, is there a liquor license?
No.
He'll have to obtain his own.
I was thinking of a jazz club.
Pizza.
Still public comments or not?
No. Other question?
So if we act on it tonight, in 30 days, if we had time to look at other proposals, that we can say we take no action in 30 days in order to consider.
And I would suspect staff and us, staff would make a recommendation if other proposals come in with the pluses and minuses, if we choose to continue with this path or switch paths.
So would staff then make a recommendation at that point if they receive, because it's not up to us when these are received, it's up to staff to make a recommendation of which one of the multiple proposals to go and say.
Make a recommendation, but we're not obligated to follow it. I would think within 30 days, we will have other proposals, and staff will analyze them and make a recommendation. We can choose to do what we think is best, or buy more time. So, start the process.
Should we advertise it?
Have a what?
Should we advertise it for a period? I don't know.
I think we're doing that for 30 days, aren't we? I mean, kind of indirectly versus doing an RFP. You're talking a formal advertisement, which would be RFPs.
I think, again, we have a very legitimate operator. We have a second, although Carl's saying he has a non-compete to do a restaurant, so his proposal is more to do the upstairs apartments and then find something downstairs or a coffee shop or something other than a restaurant. So that's going to be the staff, bring us a recommendation. We have a restaurant proposal, but we may have more in the next 30 days. So I kind of think it's a combination, Jim. I understand the alternative, but this, been working on that building for 2 or 3 years, and we have not a bird in hand. We have a bird in hand plus the opportunity to maybe have some other options. So I think it's a good compromise, but we do want to be fair. Questions for Keith?
Well, to be fair with it, we're not going to advertise, can we extend it to 45 days instead of 30?
Could we advertise the next 4 or 5 days or a week?
45 days.
45.
Extend the window in which time.
Of course, it's at least 30 days. You
Yeah,
can
30 days.
extend it for years,
Okay.
but, the opportunity.
We do that, we give it 45 days, and
What kind of time frame was Mr. Ladd looking at with that? My only concern would be with that.
he was ready to start demoing and working, but that's not the priority. Our priority is to give everybody opportunities. So maybe 45 days is a good compromise. Maybe bring this back to us in 2, maybe 3 meetings. That might be a little less than 45 days, but bring it back in 3 meetings and see what we have in a month and a half. Does that make some sense?
November
Compromise.
25th. Right around November 25th would be 3 meetings from now. I don't know if that's 45 days from now.
Again, rather, now having done the math, if you want to target that particular second meeting in November, I'd rather identify that than say 45 days and not have it fall on that date. So it'll either be that date or the following first meeting in December.
45, 1959.
Yeah.
The 25th is 42 days.
The 25th of November, we'll have that come back.
I'll accept that.
Okay, Scott?
But that would have to be worded in the motion, is that correct?
Well, we're going to run an obligation act, and we can't act before 30 days, so we will act in 42 days or whatever, or extend it.
Oh, that's true.
Okay?
Yeah, there's no motion.
All right, makes sense for everybody? So these both have to be separate motions, and roll call votes can be one. I like one, but we'll do it in separate motion. We're looking for a motion, it has to be a roll call vote. We're done with discussion to introduce commercial lease number A19-14, 10 Smells Monroe. The first action, a motion and support to introduce A.
Amended.
The 45 days is our internal decision, that's not in the thing, so we can go that 42 days.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, support. We have support? I'm sorry, okay, we have motion and support to introduce agreement A19-14, with the clerk, or the assistant clerk, or whatever you are, take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Ortiz.
That's introduced, yes.
Councilmember Tappenden.
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Canard.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Yes.
Councilmember Francisco.
Yes.
Councilmember Hazelbaker.
Yes.
Councilmember House.
Yes.
Mayor Kramer.
Yes, motion carried. Our second action would be introduce option to purchase agreement A19-15 for 10 South Monroe. And again, bring it back in 42 days for reconsideration. Motion for that, please.
So moved.
Support.
And motion and support for that. Would the clerk take a roll call vote on that?
Councilmember Menken.
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Canard.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Yes.
Councilmember
Number 13, a letter from Keith Baker regarding proposal for continued consulting services with Gabriel Media LLC. Consider adoption of Resolution 1922 and approval of Agreement A1960. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tim is in the audience. If you have any questions for him, but we've reached the point of this time last year. We entered into an agreement with Mr. Hart for a 1-year period of time in which he would be engaged to conduct downtown recruitment, commercial business recruitment and retention activities. We think he's done a very good job at doing that, and we would look to, in talking with other staff and talking with representatives of the downtown, and a couple letters that I don't know if he authored them or not, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But you had a couple letters also that were unsolicited that expressed their appreciation for Tim's assistance in their endeavors, even though maybe those endeavors didn't come to fruition, the effort he put forth to seek a project to be completed. So, and to at least bring them to their attention by representing us in those activities. So with that, the terms of the agreement would continue as they currently exist at a $1,250 a month retainer for a 12-month period, and with incentives for a targeted business opening coming to fruition would be a $1,500 bonus, and if that business or any business that reached that milestone of 1 year would also be including $1,500 bonus. So that's laid out in Resolution 1972, which adopts Agreement number 1916, and if you so chose to extend the contract, that's what we would ask you to approve.
Questions for Keith?
Have we got some checks on the bonuses yet?
No.
Lisa's here, and Audrey, who do they work together with, if you want to ask them? I didn't say we're going to allow you to talk, but go ahead, Lisa. I know you can't
Tim has not paid me to say this either, so, but I can say from our perspective, from the economic development team, that having both Audrey and particularly Tim that we're discussing tonight on board has been just very beneficial to the Central Business District and to our recruiting efforts. He has provided me, which I will be reporting on at the next council meeting, along with what Audrey has been doing for the last year, just an extensive amount of recruitment and retention in the Central Business District, with reaching out to people that we wouldn't be able to do given our work capacity. And it's been very beneficial. We have a lot of projects that are right on the cusp. We have, like everything else with economic development, we don't always get them in the end, but I've been very pleased with his efforts and been a great team member, participant, and so I would certainly hope that you would go ahead and extend that for another year.
Questions, comments? This is Keith's recommendation. He bring to these managing the staff, and he's asking us to adopt Resolution 1972 and approve Agreement A1960.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Support.
Any final questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for bringing your mom, Lisa. And number 14, a letter from Keith Baker regarding an agreement between the City of Coldwater and the United Steelworkers and Municipal Services Division. Consider adoption of Resolution 1973 and approval of Agreement A1970. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple months past the expiration date of the agreement, but we've come to an agreement with the Municipal Services Division of the Steelworkers, which is the DMS, Department of Municipal Services employees. Those are the employees that work, whether they're the cemetery staff, the mechanics and the street and park employees. And so this would provide for a 3% salary increase in the first 2 years of the 4-year contract and a 2% increase in the second 2 years of the contract. And with that, I would just ask there are some other language changes, in particular specific to federal changes to the Federal Medical Leave or Family Medical Leave Act. And we did adjust their PTO accumulation schedule. There are 12 employees currently in this bargaining unit, and with your approval, those percentages were incorporated into the budget projections. The 3% increases are comparable to the corresponding BPU bargaining unit, as well as the non-union employees received this year. And then I know police and fire are coming up in the next year or so.
I just had 2 real quick questions. So just to sum it up as far as the PTO, basically, if you're hired after 2012 and once you reach your 20 years, we're just bringing it up to where you would have been if you were hired before 2012, right? You reach 20 years, the additional PTO?
Correct, that's one of the changes.
So then they'll be on an equal playing field if you have 20 years since?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing, just maybe Megan can answer, the new language on the FMLA, what were the changes we had to make?
She's saying, no, let me. There again, it's and maybe Tom can help me or Jeff, but it's the way in which notification occurs and how they can use that time, how they notify the employer, the time in which they can use for that, even though it's unpaid. And so they get that as a benefit as part of the change in federal law. So
we have to make the changes in that language to be compliant.
Question?
I don't know if I butchered that or not.
That's good enough.
Close enough?
4-year contract, I believe.
Correct.
Other council questions? Not, they'd like approval of the resolution and the agreement. A motion?
So moved.
Support. We have a motion, and we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion did carry. Number 15, a memo from Joe Scheid, Public Safety Director, requesting an updated job description for Deputy Chief of Police. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. After I got promoted, sat down with the city manager, Mr. Baker, talked about the current layout of their department. The language I suggest is going back to kind of the my position of going back to a kind of a peer deputy police chief and then a fire chief. When I went through the promotion, I went to the fire academy and I could add a lot of administrative oversight and assistance to the fire department. So I don't really feel that the current deputy director of public safety would be needed to add the extra oversight. I think I'll be able to fill that role. Any questions about that at all?
So this would establish a job description for that position. We would look to fill that position and then backfill that with additional office.
So that's your position you vacated, Joe?
Correct.
Taking away some responsibility.
We're taking away some of the fire responsibilities of the fire language that was added to it back in 2012.
To make it easier to fill that position then?
It should make it a little bit easier. We're going to start internally, open it up internally, see if we have interested, and then if we have good candidates, we don't look internally. If we don't get good interest, then we discuss that further.
Is there a wage adjustment involved with taking part of that management responsibility to the fire side?
The wage has not been set. We kind of cover that with still by, I'm guessing. Would that be up to the city manager?
I'll interject there too. So yes, if you look at our scale, it's going to be different than what the deputy director position was previously. It would be less than that. It would be more than the current lieutenant position, but less than the prior deputy director position.
And just as you had reiterated, to reiterate what you said in the letter, we don't lose the assistance to the fire department because you have that.
100% correct.
Attempting to streamline the administrative staffing levels of the two departments and with Director Shine's promotion allows us to reorganize them.
Any information, or do you need a motion?
So I want a motion on the adoption or approval of the job description.
I move to approve the job description as presented. Support.
Okay, a motion and support for the updated job description. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Number 16, a letter from Deb Sikorsky regarding a public hearing request for obsolete properties rehab act tax certification certificate for 4147 West Chicago. Yeah.
Back in 2013, council approved a obsolete property rehabilitation district, which kind of overlays the downtown development area. And we recently received an application from Valerie Johnson / GWV Properties for 41/47 West Chicago Street. They intend on renovating there's two structures, 3 stories, and they're going to turn it into some sort of shopping and entertainment venue. And in order to do that, they're going to spend about $650,000 or so, and they're requesting an abatement through the OPR program for that. And you have to set a public hearing for Monday, October 28th.
So they're asking for approval to set the public hearing. They requested it right now. We'll have no more at the public hearing. Does that make sense to everybody? I guess she'd like a motion to set the public hearing for the next council meeting?
Yes.
So moved.
Support, yeah.
Okay. We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. We have the last spot on our agenda for public comments now. If anyone would like to address the council, then we do so now.
As far as the Lefty building, I think you guys got yourself into a real pickle here. There's going to be a bidding war on that, and you know that. And we already have zoning laws and ordinances that we have public hearings on, we plan in advance on what business types can go where and what activities can go where. But now you've got yourself into the real estate market, buying businesses and choosing specifically what type of business can go in there, above and beyond any law that's already set. I don't know that you have the legal authority to discriminate like that. If you do, it stinks at very best. But you also, I noticed the mayor said we have a viable operator and a viable proposal. Well, if I came in and offered $200,000 for that building, and I was $100,000 above everybody else, and I wanted to put in something that matched all of our ordinances and all of our zoning, and you told me no, I think you might have a problem. There's enough people here that have their fingers in real estate to know that there's real estate laws. I think you're overstepping your bounds. If not legally, in the eyes of the public, you are. You are picking winners and losers. Who can do what in this city? That hasn't worked very well in the past. And it's not going to work very well now. You need to set the rules, stand back, and let free enterprise take over. Micromanagement by the government doesn't work.
Are there public comments at this time? Yes, sir.
Again. I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed my years at Broadway Grill, and I was excited to finally bring 5-star pizza to Coldwater. It took me a long time to get here, 32 years. But met some great people. I think Randall was the first person I met actually on the council, and Keith and Tom and Tim. And, you know, I was worried about coming to a big town and big compared to Coleman and Homer, you see, the preponderance of rules, but it really was effortless. It was smooth sailing to get that restaurant going. The only time we got yelled at is when I tried to put this big balloon thing out, And Randall said that went against the ordinances, or no, sorry, Keith did. I think Keith is just jealous because it's the only thing taller than him. So, but really, I have enjoyed it, so whichever way you go, is the way you go. But I do look forward to having an opportunity there. So thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll go to unfinished business at council level. Anything unfinished business? New business, we do have one item, unless council has anything else. New business, at your desk, there was a resolution, 1975, regarding the Natural Resources Use Law Management Control Program. We've been requested by the Lake Association to contract with the DNR for swan control on their chain of lakes. We've done this in the past. To follow all DNR rules and permitting requirements. Obviously, they will do what they feel is appropriate, but the Lake Association has requested us to, we have to pass this resolution for the DNR to act. I know the Lake Association president is here, Mr. Green, if you have questions for him. I think we did this 4 or 5 years ago. It's been very successful, I can tell you. So, questions or?
So Your Honor, it's just a renewal of 5 years, it started in 2014.
Are you now, you're the city's representative on the Lake Board?
Yes, with Randall and Chairman, Township Supervisor in Gerard and Lake Board President.
Just to maybe correct something, we're not actually contracting with the DNR. This is a resolution of support to the association.
And do what they do. Questions, comments? Not a motion to adopt resolution 1975 would be nice. So moved, Your Honor.
Support.
We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Any other unfinished business? Seeing none, we are adjourned.